The rain hadn't stopped for days. It clawed at the windows like a beast trying to get in, soaking the streets of Caraway like the city itself was crying. It was the kind of rain that sank into your bones, that made every mistake echo louder, made every lie feel heavier. Detective Elias Moreau sat hunched over his desk, eyes locked on a faded photograph. A woman's face, wild curls, eyes like smoldering embers, Lyra. She had vanished 10 years ago like smoke through his fingers. The case file was labeled closed in red ink, but Elias never stopped working it. Not really. Some nights, the ghost of her laughter woke him like a gunshot. Some days, he swore he saw her in the corner of his eye, just out of reach. Everyone said she ran. They whispered about drugs, about affairs, about debts owed and enemies made. But Elias knew better. Love is a curse when you can't bury it, and his was wrapped around Lyra like a chain. Every case he touched after her was a shadow of hers. Every suspect a pale echo of the man who took her. But today was different. The letter came without a return address. A single line in scrawled ink, "You don't know what I've done for you." The handwriting curled like cigarette smoke. Elias felt his ribs tighten. He knew it like he knew the rhythm of his own breath. Lyra was alive, and she was in danger. The city pulsed under neon and fog, the kind of place where secrets stuck to your shoes. Elias pulled on his coat, the one she gave him before she disappeared, and walked out into the storm. The streets were slick with memory, every gutter a whisper, every shadow a promise. He knew where to go first. The Velvet Finch, a jazz club on the south side, tucked between a boarded up bookstore and a pawn shop that dealt more in lies than gold. It was the last place she was seen, the night before the world tore itself in half. Inside, smoke curled like phantom fingers, and the band played a low, aching tune that made you feel every love you ever lost. Detective Moreau heard a voice. It belonged to Celine Vaughn, the owner. She was all sharp edges and red velvet, with eyes like knives and a smile that could gut a man. She'd always known more than she let on. "You're 10 years too late. I got a letter," Elias said. "She's alive." Celine's lips twitched. "You sure it's not just guilt writing you love notes? Where is she?" "She's not the one you should be chasing," Celine said, lighting a cigarette. "Ask yourself, who needed her gone?" The question coiled around him like a noose. He'd asked it 1,000 times, but never aloud. Not to someone like Celine. Not in a place where truths came with a price. A man in the corner caught his eye. Clean suit, dirty shoes. Watching too closely, Elias stood and moved, fast. But the man bolted through the back, and Elias followed into the rain. They ran through alleyways slick with oil and regret. The man was fast, but fear made Elias faster. He tackled him behind an old cannery, breath coming in ragged pulls. "Who sent the letter?" Elias barked. But the man smiled with blood in his teeth. "She died for you, detective. You just couldn't stay buried." Then he bit down, something metal in his mouth, and convulsed. Dead before the thunder finished its growl. Elias sat there, soaked in rain and questions. The city swallowed the silence. They buried the man as a John Doe in the morgue's grey silence, another ghost the city wouldn't name. But Elias knew better. The cyanide capsule in his mouth said trained, professional, someone with orders, someone scared of talking more than dying, and someone very interested in Lyra. He stared at the body through the glass for a long time, until his reflection stopped looking like his own. Guilt wears the face of every choice you didn't make. Elias returned to his apartment, a cramped one-bedroom with a bed that hadn't been shared in 10 years and a fridge full of takeout cartons he never finished. He poured himself a whiskey, didn't drink it, just held it. The silence hummed around him. The letter lay on the table. "You don't know what I've done for you." He turned it over again, fingers brushing over the paper like it might bleed truth. The words haunted him, because he did know, at least part of it. Lyra vanished after he asked her to testify. Against someone powerful. Against someone untouchable. Julian Vance. Businessman by day. Phantom by night. The kind of man who made his money cleaning up after other people's sins and charging triple for it. Back then, Elias had been sure Vance had blood on his hands. Lyra had proof, and she'd agreed to testify. And then she disappeared. Her last words to Elias had been, "Tell me the truth. All of it." He hadn't. Had been too scared. Now he was ready. He drove across the city like the night was chasing him, straight to Vance's estate, a mansion built on old stone and new money, where the walls were thicker than a man's conscience. He didn't bother with subtlety. Just walked through the front gate with a badge and a fury 10 years in the making. A butler tried to stop him. Elias flashed steel, not a weapon, but a warrant. Half legal. Entirely ignored. Vance was in his study, drinking something too expensive and pretending not to age. "Elias," he said smoothly, "still chasing ghosts?" "She's alive." Vance didn't blink, but something in his jaw tightened. A flicker. A crack. "I got a letter. From her." "I'm sure you did," Vance said calmly. "People grieve in strange ways. She was going to testify against you. You made her disappear. Careful, detective. Accusations like that cost people careers. Lives." Elias stepped closer. "She said she loved me. Then she vanished. Now someone's trying to kill the truth again. Why?" Vance rose from his chair like a man used to controlling the room. "Because love doesn't excuse murder." The words landed like a slap. Because Elias had wondered, more times than he could count, if Lyra had killed to survive. If she had blood on her hands in exchange for her silence. But he still loved her, even if the woman she'd become was a stranger. Vance waved him off with a sigh. "Go home, Elias. You've wasted enough of your life on shadows." But Elias knew something Vance didn't. Shadows only exist when the light gets close. He left without another word, but not before pocketing the half-burnt photo on Vance's desk of Lyra, younger, wearing the pendant Elias had given her. Proof or bait? Back home, the door was open. He moved slowly, hand on his gun, heart beating too loud. The room was dark, but not empty. She stood by the window, Lyra, hair shorter, face harder, but those eyes still embers. "I told you not to come looking," she said. And Elias could barely breathe. "You lied to protect me. I killed a man," she whispered. "For you. For us. And I ran. Because if I stayed, you would be next." The silence between them stretched like a blade. "I trusted you," he said. "You shouldn't have." Tears welled in her eyes, and he hated that he still wanted to wipe them away. Still wanted to hold her even if she was made of fire. "You don't know what you've done," she said. They were never supposed to find out. He didn't speak. Couldn't. Because how do you find words when the person you buried comes back holding your name like a curse? Lyra stood against the glass like she was trying to disappear into the storm. The city blurred behind her, all smeared neon and broken halos. She looked like something unfinished, part ghost, part reckoning. "I was going to tell you everything," she said, barely above a whisper. "But when I saw your name on that hit list, I knew I had to disappear. You could have trusted me." "No," she said. "I could love you, Elias. But I couldn't trust you to stay alive." He stepped forward, and she didn't move. They were inches apart now. He could smell rain in her hair, fear on her skin, regret behind her eyes. "Who did you kill?" he asked. Lyra closed her eyes. "One of Vance's men. He caught me copying files. I didn't mean to, but he would have killed me. I ran." "You didn't just run. You vanished." "I had to." "And the letter." Her voice cracked. "I wanted you to stop digging. I wanted you to be safe." Elias felt his heart twist in his chest, like someone had tied piano wire around it and pulled. All those nights had searched, all the cases, he let rot while chasing ghosts. All the questions head buried under bourbon and silence. "You don't get to decide who I become without you," he said. Lyra's eyes met his then, full of old wars and soft lightning. "I'm sorry," she said, "but it's not over." She handed him a flash drive. "What's this?" "Everything I stole. Files, videos, names." Vance doesn't clean his hands. He buries what he can't erase. "This is the truth, and it'll get us both killed." Elias stared at it, then at her. "You came back to finish it." "I came back because I never stopped loving you." The words hit harder than any bullet. He wanted to believe her. God, he did. But belief was a dangerous thing, like standing under a falling sky and hoping it forgets to crush you. Before he could respond, glass shattered, a bullet slicing through the window, embedding itself in the wall inches from her head. Elias shoved her down, pulled his gun. Another shot. Closer. Silencer. "They found me," Lyra gasped. "No," Elias said. "They found us." He grabbed her hand, and they ran. Down the fire escape, through puddles and panic. The city howled around them, sirens like distant wolves. They didn't stop until they hit the old bridge at Hollow Creek, a place that used to mean something. It was where he first kissed her. Where she said, "If you walk away now, we're done." He hadn't walked. Not then. Not now. They leaned against the stone archway, catching their breath, soaked in cold and adrenaline. "I have somewhere safe," Elias said. "An old contact. Off-grid. Vance won't stop." Then we don't give him the chance. The next day, they were ghosts. New names. Disappeared into the underbelly of the city, where cameras blinked and informants breathed in secrets and exhaled lies. But even in hiding, the past clawed at them. Elias spent hours reviewing the files. They were worse than he imagined. Bribes. Murders. A senator on payroll. A judge in Vance's pocket. A girl, 16, disappeared after threatening to speak. He wanted to throw up. Lyra sat beside him, silent. "You held on to this for 10 years. I kept it in case I ever grew brave again. And now I'm tired of running." Elias looked at her, saw the fire still smoldering beneath the ash. He reached out, took her hand. "We end this. Together." They moved like ghosts through the city's underground, whispering names in the right ears, handing off evidence in alleyways where cameras didn't reach. The files Lyra had stolen were dynamite soaked in gasoline. Every byte screamed corruption, dates, names, payments. Murders cleaned up like spilled wine. But no one wanted to touch it. Too dangerous. Too big. Too many fingers in too many pockets. Elias went to the only person who might listen, Captain Juno Mercer. His former boss. The last honest badge in a sea of rusted ones. "You're walking me into a grave, Elias," she said, staring at the drive. This will burn the whole house down." "Good," Elias replied. "Let it burn." Mercer leaned back. "You understand what happens if you're wrong." "I'm not." She sighed. "And if she's playing you?" He didn't blink. "Then I die knowing I tried." Mercer took the drive. "Give me 48 hours. They didn't have 48 hours. That night, someone set fire to the safe house. Elias woke coughing smoke, dragging Lyra out through flames and falling plaster. They escaped with nothing but the clothes on their backs and a memory of warmth turned to ash. "They know," Lyra gasped, her face streaked in soot and fear. "Vance knows everything." Elias checked his watch. 18 hours left. They ran. They hid in the only place no one would look, the basement of the church where Lyra once volunteered back when she believed people could be saved. Dust cloaked the pews like forgotten prayers, and broken stained glass cast bleeding colors on the floor. "I wanted a life with you," she said, curled beneath Elias' arm, voice barely audible. "A house. A garden. Maybe a dog. Stupid, right?" "Not stupid," he murmured. "Just stolen." She looked up at him. "Do you still love me, even now?" He answered with his eyes, not words. Because some truths are louder in silence. They kissed like it was the end of the world, and maybe it was. Maybe this was the last night either of them would breathe freely. But in that moment, they were just Elias and Lyra. Two people caught between what was and what could never be. By morning, the church bells rung for no one. Mercer called, "You need to come in now." They met in an abandoned subway tunnel, neutral ground. Elias had his gun drawn. Lyra stood beside him, wrapped in a borrowed coat, eyes sharp. "You were right," Mercer said. "The files are real, but there's more." She handed Elias a folder. Inside, surveillance photos. Elias, Lyra. A third man. He stared. "No," Lyra whispered. "That's not, it's your handler," Mercer said. "You weren't just running from Vance. You were working with one of his competitors." Elias, Lyra grabbed his arm. "I didn't have a choice. After I ran, I needed protection. They offered it. In exchange for information. I gave them crumbs. Nothing more. But I swear, I never lied to you." Elias stepped back, his pulse deafening. "You were spying on me." "No. I was trying to stay alive. By using me. No, by loving you. And hoping that would be enough to fix what I broke." A beat of silence. Then two gunshots rang out, not from Elias, not from Lyra. From behind. Mercer staggered, a bloom of red on her coat. She fell. Vance stepped from the shadows, flanked by two men in black. "Well," he said, "it's always the ones you trust." Elias fired first, two clean shots. One hit. One missed. Chaos. The tunnel became a war zone of echoes and flashes. Elias tackled Lyra to the ground, covering her body with his. Return fire sparked off concrete. Another man dropped. Then another. When the smoke cleared, Vance was gone. Mercer was dead. And Lyra was bleeding. "No, no, no, stay with me," Elias said, pressing his hands to her side. Blood soaked through like ink on paper. "You still love me," she whispered, shivering. "Always." Her fingers curled around his. "Then don't let this end here." Lyra's blood was warm on his hands, too warm, too fast. Elias ripped off his jacket, pressed it hard against her wound, whispering her name like a prayer he wasn't sure anyone was listening to. "Stay with me. Don't you dare leave." She gave a breathless laugh. "Still giving orders? I'm serious." "So am I." Her fingers gripped his wrist weakly. "If I die here, at least I die as me. With you." "No one's dying today." But her eyelids fluttered like curtains in a storm. Sirens howled in the distance. Not cops, not Vance's men. Real help. Mercer's backup. Maybe her final act of defiance. Maybe just a twist of fate. But it was enough. Elias carried Lyra through darkness and blood, through the ruined tunnel, his legs screaming, his heart breaking. He didn't stop until he saw headlights and shouted voices. Then everything blurred. White walls, blue scrubs, beeping machines. Time twisted itself into a cruel, elastic thing. Seconds stretched. Hours disappeared. He sat outside the surgery room like a man drowning in dry air. Love doesn't excuse murder, Vance had said. But maybe love demanded justice. 2 days later, Elias stood before the press with Mercer's deputy and a stack of classified files. Every name, every deal, every cover-up. The world tilted when they released it all. The city cracked at the seams. Judges resigned. Senators were indicted. A task force formed in Mercer's name. Vance vanished. But not before sending Elias one final message, a small box delivered to the station. Inside, the bullet he had meant for Lyra. And a note, "Next time, I won't miss." Elias burned it without a word. Lyra woke 3 days after surgery. Her voice was hoarse. "Am I dead?" "No," Elias said, sitting by her bedside, his face a map of sleepless nights. "But you scared the hell out of me." She tried to smile. "You stayed." "Of course. I thought after everything I'm not walking away. Not this time." She closed her eyes, and a single tear slid down her cheek. Then I think we've already won. Recovery was slow. Elias stayed with her through every breath, every nightmare. They rented a place out by the coast when she was discharged, something small, with peeling paint and a wild garden neither of them knew how to tame. But it was theirs. Some nights they said nothing, just listened to the waves and watched the sky lose its color. Other nights, they argued, cried, remembered, but they loved. God, they loved like survivors, like two people who had watched the world burn and decided to plant flowers in the ash. One evening, she asked, if you could go back, would you still fall in love with me? Elias looked at her, hair tangled from wind, scars visible in the fading light, and answered with the truth too big for doubt. Every time. But peace doesn't last forever. One morning, a postcard arrived. No stamp, no message, just a picture of Caraway's skyline and a date scribbled on the back, 1 week from now. Elias stared at it. Lyra stepped beside him. Is it him? He nodded. She didn't flinch. Then we finish this. They returned to the city not as fugitives or lovers clinging to a dying spark, but as something sharper, forged by loss, tempered by truth. They walked the streets like ghosts who'd learned to live again. Elias had a plan, and Lyra, she had the fire. On the night of the meeting, they waited in the exact place where it all began, the Velvet Finch. The band played, smoke curled, and in walked Vance, alone, calm, untouched by the chaos he'd caused. He sat across from them. I could kill you both, he said. But you won't, Lyra replied, eyes cold. Because this time, we're not afraid. Elias slid an envelope across the table. Copies, videos, testimonies, with people who don't like you. Insurance, Lyra said, for when you try to disappear again. Vance's smile faded. You think this ends cleanly? No, Elias said. But it ends. They stood, left him there, surrounded by the ruins of his empire. And maybe, just maybe, something inside him cracked. Later, on a balcony overlooking the city, Elias wrapped his arms around Lyra. You think we're safe now? She asked. No, he said. But we're together. She leaned into him. Then that's enough. And maybe it was. Maybe some love stories don't end in weddings or sunsets, but in scars and survival. Into broken people choosing over and over to keep going, to keep loving. Not because it's easy, but because it's true.